But here's the cool part about all of this and the lesson of love is you weren't created to change the world. Ooh, let me say that again. You weren't created to change the world. You were created to change your world. And by changing your world, will you actually change the world of others? And then they will do the same, and so on and so on. So it's not about the macro, but the micro. And how cool would it be if you decided to make that change in your world, a change of love, that you have love and are love and can be love. And then that love is shared because you are you and love. And others are infected and spread that love to another and then to another and to another. The Madness Method Podcast, episode 55. Life is just straight up crazy. Now there's a guy to help you navigate through all of it. Welcome to the Madness Method. I was once asked at a conference, what do you think the world needs more of right now? And my honest answer at the time was more love. The world needs more love right now. Now, in that moment, I was trying to think of the coolest thing that I could possibly say, and it ended up being the cheesiest thing that I could say. In fact, I remember that moment telling them, this is probably going to sound cheesy, but I really do feel that the world needs more love right now. And I couldn't have been more honest in my response, because that was exactly what was going on in my mind and my heart, and I truly felt that that's what the world needed at that point in time. And there isn't more of a fitting time to say this than today because, well, I'm just the type of guy that likes to go down the rabbit hole of possibility. So what if we did play that game? What if we played it out to see exactly what it could mean if the world definitely did have more love? So we'll get into that, but first I want to lay a little bit of groundwork. So I think it's safe to say that we live in this time that we live in because of the circumstances that we have. Now, I know that sounds very generic and vague, but we're removed from a crazy pandemic, and the world is just getting back to an image of its former self. Maybe there's a better way to say that. Maybe I should say that it's changing its image of itself, that it's curious to say the least. It's confused and unsure and volatile all at the same time. And I think that we can all agree that regardless of whatever side that you're on right now, that things could be better, that things could have been better, that there could have been a bit better decision made, that there could have been a better choice that could have been had. And I would imagine to some that this was all a surprise. To some, this was probably the inevitable result. So here we are in this world that we created with the choices that we've made, and maybe you had a choice in creating it. Maybe you chose to watch it all unfold. Maybe you chose to fight it, or maybe you chose to be born in it. It's my belief that everything in this world and everybody has a part in this game of life. And most of us are unaware of the part that we play. Some of us are very aware. But this is the starting point. This is the groundwork. This is where we all begin. So now what? Well, if the result we have is the result we have because of the choices that we make, then logic dictates that we can change a variable and thus then create a different result. That makes sense. The variable being the choice. So if I make a different choice, chances are that I can have and create a different result. Well, that makes sense, right? Well, it's that simple. However, the stats are not in our favor. I mean, we have a world history of making choices that result in pain and suffering and controversy. We have a world history of indifference, separation, and segregation. And the history that says there's your side and then there's my side, and that the sides are not intertwined. We have a history of war and conquering so that the decisions we make and the choices that we choose are in line with the world that we have and that we have always had. And I'm not meaning to paint this negative picture here. There have also been the world's fair share of peace and harmony. It just pales in comparison to the prior. So to me, history isn't good or bad. It just is. It's a blip in my life where I get to choose what I want to focus on. And so I know exactly what I'm asking for when I ask you to imagine a world of love. I'm asking for all of us to imagine a world that does not exist, to consider a result of pure imagination, a fairy tale, if you will. So this is the rabbit hole. It's the rabbit hole because it's the conspiracy theory that a small community pursues. It's a fantasy land, a rose-colored glasses type of future that is, well, not dystopian. Now, I love me some dystopian future movies. I mean, I'm on The Last of Us bandwagon, The Edge of Tomorrow, Blade Runner, Minority Report. It's fun for me to imagine all of that too. However, that comes more to life every single day because of our history. And, well, rarely do I see the world of love, except for only in my dreams. Well, on the Hallmark Channel. I mean, there's a lot of love going on there. But spreading love in the real world is often seen as weak and childish, a version that some like the idea of, but rarely does it ever go far. Mother Teresa, probably the greatest example of this, a real person in the real world that was actually really trying to spread love with her message of service. And there's a story of an activist group that asked her to join their protests to fight against a tyrannical government. And she asked if it was peaceful. And the organization said, well, they would fight until they got exactly what they wanted, until there was peace. She declined. Her thought was, if it isn't spreading love, I don't want to be a part of it, which is a stance that she took throughout her life, and also why she didn't really join many causes other than her own, because all of them ended in some sort of fight against another. She understood that people had to fight to get what they wanted, but she didn't think that fighting was the way. She believed peace and love were the way, and then that was her world, peace and love. Many people flocked to it because it was the watering hole mirage in the desert of cruel reality. I mean, if there were social media back then, she would have been ostracized for not using her platform enough or not speaking out against certain groups. She would have been raked through the coals for not fighting back. And in fact, back then, she was. Most currently, one of my wife's favorite authors is Marianne Williamson. She decided to run for office back in 2020 when it seemed like everybody was running for office back then and even now. But now running again. She's a very spiritual person and big in spirituality space, and she focuses a lot on spreading love and unity. Well, that world is better known for, as lack of a better word, woo-woo. I thought so too until my wife jumped into that bandwagon, and by proxy, I got to learn exactly what that world is all about. So the spiritual world focuses on a person, centering themselves, and then understanding that there is so much that this world and the universe has to offer, and that there are many things that we don't understand. That's exactly what that world is about. So here is this spiritual person saying to a panel of politicians that we need to learn to spread love and lift the vibration of this world. And we can't do that by fighting. Now, regardless of whether or not you agree with her political views is irrelevant. The point is that simple concept of having more love is the answer. Well, she got laughed at. And many criticized her for being naive, that the possibility of hugging America's enemies and sending love their way won't stop a thing. And they're probably right, but her intent was pure. But the audience just wasn't ready to hear an alternative to what is already in front of them, what they already know. Even when love is presented on the main stage and offered as a solution, does it actually fall short as a possibility? And this is the lesson of today. The lesson that says the love that the world needs right now. So what would this imaginary world look like? What would it feel like if the world was more loving? Would people get along better? Would wars cease to exist? Would we have less anger or killing and maybe more dancing and parties in the street? I mean, who knows? But I want to explore this a little bit and just see exactly what it could mean if there was more love in the world. So every so often, a cycle of care goes around the world where people ask the question, how do we do more to solve the world's problems? And I mean that as a society as a whole, we do this. And companies cash in on the trend. Sure, there are many groups that are actually dedicated towards trying to solve the world's problems constantly and genuinely, but overall it seems to be an opportunistic fad. I mean, Greta Thunberg skips school to devote her time and energy towards telling many people how they could do better. Marketers know this and ask that we help their causes by donating money, saving a life for a pet, hoping that the dollar can make a difference in their attempt to make, well, real change. And some do a great job. Many use us to, well, line their pocketbooks, and we're left with the feeling that it might not even be making a change. But in cycles is how the majority thinks, and typically with a different agenda than the actual care of making a difference. So during these cycles, the biggest question that arises is the how. We get wrapped up emotionally in the question, how can little old me save an entire planet? And then you see how every little thing that you do doesn't even move the needle of making change on the grandest scales. And then you get deflated because, well, quote unquote, what am I doing doesn't even make a difference anyways. And then it stops, and then you go about your day, and then you're back to normal again. And then many of us do this constantly over and over again as a cycle. And the answer is yes and no. Yes, what you're doing is making a change. But no, what you're doing isn't making a change at the grandest scale. But here's the cool part about all of this and the lesson of love is you weren't created to change the world. Ooh, let me say that again. You weren't created to change the world. You were created to change your world. And by changing your world, will you actually change the world of others? And then they will do the same, and so on and so on. So it's not about the macro, but the micro. And how cool would it be if you decided to make that change in your world, a change of love, that you have love and are love and can be love. And then that love is shared because you are you and love. And others are infected and spread that love to another and then to another and to another. I just got an idea for a new movie on Hallmark, The Love Epidemic, where someone gets infected with love and then spreads cheer to everyone else. And then before you know it, the world is in love. I mean, that sounds pretty cool. It would never sell on the big screen because it's not a zombie apocalypse. I get that. That's okay. So what would that look like, though? What would it look like if the next time that the neighbor bothers you, that you send love their way? That if it didn't change, then at least it changed your world because you are at peace now and have love in your heart, and a loving person cannot be annoyed. What if the next time that the car that cuts you off in traffic, you sent love to them and then took a moment to breathe, knowing that you and your car are safe because it didn't trigger you, that your driving is calmer and carefree? What if the next time that a person yells at you and is mean receives love from you, that your body and your energy calms the energy of the angry person and de-escalates the situation? Social media can be a noxious fume of anger at times. After making a comment about congratulating someone for a choice that they made for themselves, I did that on social media. They were happy and I wanted to celebrate them. And so I told them that congratulations, way to go. I got bombarded with all these different hate tweets because it didn't align with other people's points of view. I found it interesting because my brain went into this curiosity at how people think. It literally was a case study for me. So I decided to respond to every single answer with love in my heart. Each response for calmer and calmer. Not everyone, but this one in particular ended up becoming a friend of mine. I found out that his mom was going through a hard time, that I told him about my mom and what was going on with her, and then we became friends. It's amazing what having love in your heart can do. Now, I'm not saying that love is always the answer. I'm not naive enough to think that love is going to save me from a zombie apocalypse. I'm no dummy, all right? But I do think that our world could use more people creating and giving love in their world to create a positive change. The world doesn't have to be a certain way for you to enjoy it. Your world could be whatever you want it to be. All you have to do is focus and put your energy towards the things that you can control. And that is how you feel about what goes on and your response to it all. So if the world is a complete chaos, I have the choice to make it a world of love, to see a world of love. And then that choice most likely will spread. The saying goes, one bad apple ruins the bunch. Now I know what I'm about to say is going against all logic, but I also believe that in a world of bad apples, a good one could lift the bunch as well. Now I remember seeing this viral video on YouTube once where a guy was dancing by himself at this music festival. Music was blaring, someone was videotaping this guy, he was going nuts. And it seemed to go on for such a long time until one person decided to join him. They would high five and they would dance, and then the second person kind of making a mockery of him dancing foolishly until another person joins, and then another and another. Now 5 people are dancing. It's a party. The video eventually ends with hundreds of people having this rave in the middle of a park of an open field, laughing, smiling, having fun, free. A good apple can lift the bunch. There's a reason why studies show speaking to your child, having them listen to music, making fun faces is healthy for them. Because positivity and loving energy helps create better hormones, stronger immune systems, and better cognitive growth. It's also the reason why water, when spoken to with positive affirmations, will actually crystallize larger and smoother than that if spoken to with negative words. It's scientifically proven. And if anything, our bodies are made up of 60% water. But there is one thing that I didn't think about. Probably the thing that has to do most with whether or not I can see this love, accept this love, or have love in this world. I was having this conversation with my wife about this podcast in particular and telling her my thoughts on love in the world. My wife is an energy life coach and works with many clients, helping them really overcome all these obstacles that are in their life. And she said, when I take clients through a process on love, they typically all say the same thing. I don't know what love is. So if I don't know what love is, how can I accept it? Or better yet, the phrase, I thought I loved myself, but I don't know how. So then it made me think, if people don't know how to love, if we don't know what love is, how can we accept it? How do we know when it's here? This could explain the reason why some people see when someone is nice that they don't even know how to react to it. This could explain why when you say, I love you to somebody that they reject it, change the subject or even say it right back at you. Or maybe why they can't even take or say the word love because of the baggage that it comes with from the experience of their life or past life. And if the world has a hard time accepting love, how am I going to share love with the world that doesn't even know how to react to it? The answer for me, well, comes with the training that I've had, given to me by my teachers and down to my own clients when I hear this from them. And that's this. Teach them how to accept it. That's it. When my teachers would give me a compliment, I used to do this thing, this great defense mechanism where I would shove it right back at them. By making a joke or sidestepping it, they would say something like, great job. And I would say, well, it was because of the great training. And see what I did there? I sidestepped it and complimented them and took it back to them. My teacher would say thank you. Take the compliment. I would say thank you. We have to teach people to say thank you, to learn how to accept a compliment, to learn how to accept love. How? Well, the dog trainer in me says bits at a time, like little treats here and there when they say thanks or accept a hug. Next time a person side hugs you, mention to them, both arms, please, and see if they go for it. I mean, there's a win. The next time that you say, I love you, and they don't say anything in return, let them know it's okay. You don't have to say anything. Just know that you're loved and there's nothing that you can do about it. And there isn't anything that you have to do. You can't force the love on somebody. They'll reject it. But if you just keep showing the love, they eventually will calm down and they'll accept it. Like the dog that takes the food from the new owner that loves it. Like the woman that trusts the man that continues to love her. Like the child that feels safe in their new home filled with love. Eventually, love wins. Now, maybe not immediately, but eventually in time, it will. A recent social media poll in my feed asked thoughts on fear being a great motivator. Many weighed in on the comments, some upset that negativity wasn't the motivating factor and that others saying that positive motivation is better. And my answer was, fear's a great motivator. It motivated me to get my butt off and go to work. But eventually, the strongest motivator is the one that is filled with love. Love is the greatest motivator because it's the most powerful emotion that anybody could feel. It's the most positive, it's the strongest, and it's the most scary. Many are scared what love can do. It overwhelms people to tears and scares them beyond belief. It's why the tough guy rejects the tears because he feels that love, he's afraid it could make him look weak. It's why the boss rejects love because feeling vulnerable is unprofessional. Love is the answer. Now, I know it's not the most popular, But in the end, if we allow it, it will win. We were born out of love, and in love will we return. My hope is that the world sees that love could be an answer for them, and then begin to use it to solve all of its problems. I wonder what kind of world we could live in if it had more love in it. If our enemies felt more love from us, if our problems and issues were sent love instead of fear, anxiety, and worry. I imagine a world of love, and in doing so, I can feel the world immediately around me become more loving. The days where I send out love, I can feel the love being sent right back at me. And a world that is more loving and filled with love is a world that I truly would love to live in. And that, my friends, is the method behind the madness that is the love the world needs right now. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next time. Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of the Madness Method Podcast. If you really liked it, tell everybody. Share it with a friend, subscribe, make a comment below, and like this video. If you didn't like it, don't tell anybody. Thank you very much. We'll catch you guys next time.